So 70% of us have imposter syndrome, right? But people view it as a sign of failure. I've never done it before. They're going to think I'm an imposter. I actually feel, and I wrote about this in Psychology Today, I actually feel like it's a sign of success. You are feeling it because you are doing something no one has ever done before.
Hi, I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to empowering Catalyst to create bold, powerful change in the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we speak with Catalyst executives about ways to successfully lead transformation in large organizations.
Today, we're super excited to have time with Ruth Gotian. Ruth is a prolific mentor and educator leading important research into the secrets of success. She's an award-winning leadership expert and a globally recognized mentor, named the world's #1 emerging management thinker by Thinkers 50 and a top 20 global mentor. She's the Chief Learning Officer at Weill Cornell Medicine. She helps organizations achieve success by conceiving, designing, and launching innovative programs and redesigning and fixing the underperforming ones. Based on years of research, she studies the most successful people of our generation. This part is so cool, including Nobel laureates, astronauts that we were just talking about, Olympic champions, in order to understand what they do when the world isn't watching. Her work has been featured in top publications like Forbes and the Harvard Business Review and inspires others to pursue and achieve their highest potential. Welcome, Ruth.
Hello, hello.
Lovely to have you. All right, well, let's just jump right in. So like I said, that's a small synopsis of the amazing impact you've already had. Just tell us a little bit about your catalytic journey, maybe sharing a few career highlights that you're proud of that help us see your catalytic nature.
Well, I think people just give you these labels. I don't know that this is a label I would have given myself, but I'll embrace it. And I think the reason that it was thrown at me, is because if there's a road that most people go on, that's never the road that I take. Not because I'm looking for something different. I would much rather have the easier road, but the easier road just didn't seem so interesting to me. And if you want interesting and you want challenging and you want opportunity and you want to be able to do things bigger, better, faster, differently, create things that didn't exist before, then you have to go down that road that no one else was willing to go on. And I did, so much so that I went back to school at 43.
Amazing. Amazing. People often actually, when catalysts go through the first like self-recognition phase, sometimes, not all the time, so people be like, do I have an option to not be a catalyst for exactly the road? Like, it's definitely not the easiest road, right? So I'm wondering, like, what is the burning thing behind you taking the road? Like, how do you think that, like, have you been like that since you were young? Was there a transformational moment where you're like, I'm just operating differently than everyone?
I didn't recognize it at the time, but come to think of it, as I look back, if you were to hold up that mirror, then yeah, probably, right? When I was 10 years old, in my school, we had recess period, and it was always split by gender. The boys got to play soccer and the girls traded stickers, right? This is at a time way before phones. I was not interested in the high commodity sticker exchange where the googly-eyed stickers were worth more than the one-dimensional flat ones. I had zero interest in that. I mean, girls, we came with our albums. It was all very organized. I just wanted to kick a ball around. I had energy. I wanted to kick a ball around. But my teacher said, girls don't play soccer. And I was 10, and this didn't make sense to me because I was physically capable of kicking a ball. So I went to the library. Remember, this is pre-internet. I went to the library and I took out every book that the library had, my neighborhood library had, that had pictures of girls playing soccer. And Monday morning, I walked into school. I put the stack of books on his desk and I said, I'd like to revisit that conversation about my playing soccer at recess. Now, no one told me to do this. Obviously, then I got to play, but there was only a boys' team, so I played with the boys. And anyway, it made me really good. But the reason that happened was I wasn't interested in stickers. I wanted to kick a ball around. I had to find a way to do it. Either, help me or get out of the way because it's going to happen. So
Amazing
that has
story.
been the
Like,
story of my life.
also, you just brought me back to a very visceral experience of the sticker culture. So thank you for that. So like, what did your parents say when that happened? Like, did they understand and get you? Is that something that they had modeled for you?
Well, I come from a family, I'm the only woman in my family in 4 generations. So I had seen men doing it this way, fighting for what they want their entire life. I didn't know that there was any other way.
Mm,
And my grandmother went to pharmacy school. There were 300 men and 13 women in her class.
wow.
So I think this is really in my DNA. If you want something, you make the case for it and you go for it. And everyone else either hop on the bus or get out of the way.
Amazing. I love it. I'm wondering what it means to you, like how you relate to the concept of catalyst. We talked about this a little bit, but also like how does being a catalyst support you in the amazing impact that you've had in the world?
Well, now that I realize that the path that people haven't traveled on, it's not because I'm going in the wrong direction. It's just a direction no one's thought of before. And I have learned to be comfortable with that discomfort. And that took years, decades, because I realize it's uncomfortable right now, but every day, every hour, every person I meet, I am learning something new. And I use that knowledge to then develop and create and bring to life an idea, a project, a program, and it keeps working.
How did you get, I mean, it sounds like you at 10 were sort of like already bullish in terms of, leaning in and having the sort of quote unquote tough conversation with the teacher. But it can be maybe different stakes when you're having that like level of uncomfortability in your professional world. Do you have tips for people? And I'll just say, like, we often end up in roles where we have like the imposter syndrome because no one's ever done it before, or it's like
Yeah.
that new thing. How do you navigate that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, so 70% of us have imposter syndrome, right? But people view it as a sign of failure. I've never done it before. They're going to think I'm an imposter. I actually feel, and I wrote about this in Psychology Today, I actually feel like it's a sign of success. You are feeling it because you are doing something no one has ever done before. So your body is confused as to how to feel about it, but really it should be a sign of success because you're achieving something and that achievement is new to you. Once I shifted that way of thinking about it, to me, anything then becomes possible. And I think professionally, if you want to be that catalyst and do something new and create something, first of all, you have to do your research first, right? You have to see where is the gap. Then you have to make a business case for that gap and how you can fix that gap and close it. And once you do that, that is hermetically sealed. That is as good as gold because you've identified the gap, the business reason behind why that gap and filling that gap is important, how you are the solution to this problem they hadn't even realized they had, and how that would help the business case. And if you're able to do that, then you are really able to push yourself forward. Now, recognize it will not be easy because you are doing something no one else has done before.
Not shockingly, amazing mentor advice from one of the world's foremost mentors. So thank you for that. Amazing. We always love it when people give us kind of formulaic ways to address some of the biggest challenges that our population has. So thank you. I'm curious in your journey. I love the story at 10, creating, the path in a road that didn't exist. When I look at your history and look at your professional accomplishments, I see a shift from when it was, like Ruth wants to play soccer. And then there's, ways that you've created change that also are impacting others. Not to say that that moment didn't also create opportunity for other women, but it wasn't the goal, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Was there a conscious moment that you go back to as that shifted, or was it kind of always driven by like, I want to go do this?
I think then it was, I want to go do this. And if
Yeah.
other people want to come along or come along after, by all means. And by the way, I got a video a few years ago. Now, this has been over 40 years since that whole soccer situation. And someone sent me a video. They said, just wanted you to know the school has a girls' soccer team and we want to send you the video. The story is legendary around the school. So I think it creates something, and it opens the opportunity. Look, I'm hinted I went back to school for my doctorate at a much later age. I was 43. And of course, people said, don't do it and blah, blah, blah. I did it because I wanted to do it. I had a burning question. And again, either hop on the bus or get out of the way. And I was very forthcoming about the journey. Here are the classes. I have papers coming up with a dissertation. I interviewed these people. I wrote these chapters. I have my defense. I was really out there with it. And to date, 6 people have already told me that they went back to school to either get their bachelor's, master's, law degree, or doctorate because they were following this story. So I think we can all have this ripple effect,
Yeah.
even when it's unintended.
Yes.
And I think it's important to create those ripple effects so that you can help people that you will never have the opportunity to meet.
I just love that even when we teach it, we definitely start from the vision that people have that makes the world better. I
Yeah.
really like the invitation for folks to say, it is okay for us to start from what we are called to do and what feels important for us, and understanding that in tackling that, there is positive ripple, especially if you're sharing it in the way
Yes.
you're talking about with your degree. That is so beautiful.
Well, that's how you create impact, right? Because what we know and what I know from my research on high performers is that it all started with their intrinsic motivation, this burning question that they had inside of them. Because once this is that burning question, you're jumping out of bed. You're so excited to tackle it, right? And you can't quiet your mind at night. Once you're able to do that, it becomes exciting. It becomes your reason for being, and you're willing to do
Mhm.
whatever it takes. I mean, just ask any Olympian, right? Why did they
Mhm.
put that level of work and focus into it? This is what they love to do. And
Mhm.
it's beyond loving what you do. It's their purpose. It grounds them. And I think in doing so, they are able to open the doors for so many others. Now, my mentor, when I told him I was going back to school and we were discussing what I would do my research on, he said 6 words that changed my life. He said, do something important, not just interesting. He didn't tell me what to do, what not to do, but those 6 words changed my life, because the project I was intending to do would have been a pilot study at one institution, not really much of an impact. But by making it important, I made it an international study. And now all of a sudden it's a catalyst for change.
Mhm.
And that led to a TED Talk and articles and books and keynotes and coaching and all of that stuff because of those 6 words. Do
Yeah.
something important, not just interesting.
It helps me so much in the work we do and who we support, right? The intersectionality of intrinsic motivation and important.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we talk about the intrinsic motivation part enough. The important part we cover. So
Yeah.
thank you. That's an incredible gift.
Yes. And for those who may not know the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic, extrinsic is when you're doing it for the awards, rewards, promotions, bonuses, recognition. It's really when other people are judging you.
Mhm.
And that is really hard to maintain the motivation for that, to do it for
Mhm.
someone else. But when you're doing it ideally for yourself, that's when it gets so much bigger, right? You see it becomes bigger than you are. And I know this is true because every time I interview an Olympian, an NBA champion, NFL Hall of Famer, I say, show me your ring, show me your medal, show me, whatever. And they all say, hold on a second. And they have to run get it. It's in the safe, it's in the
It's
nightstand
not the
drawer,
thing right next
it's
to
under the bed, it's, Apollo Ono had it in a brown paper bag in his sock drawer. And I said, I don't understand. I would wear it around my neck all day long. And they said to me, it was never about the medal.
Mhm.
They said, that's a chapter in my life, not the entire story.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, I've interviewed many, many Nobel Prize winners. I don't know of a single one who quit doing science just because they won the Nobel Prize.
Right.
If
Right.
anything, they doubled down. It was never about the medal. It's nice to be recognized for what you do. Don't get me wrong. We all want that.
Right.
Nobody wants to be overlooked. But that cannot be your driving force. That is too hard to maintain.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'll bridge this to your work organizationally, because you do all kinds of work, and that's a piece of what you do. That for catalysts, sometimes what can happen is the intrinsic motivation is often the starting point. The orchestration required to really move change in those environments can disconnect us from the energy of that intrinsic motivation, which is why
Yeah.
I'm realizing us making that really clear for people would be very valuable for them to go back to, right?
Yeah.
Plus, there's a lot of emotional labor that we need to do when we're creating change in these environments that
Yes.
can impact you. And so having
Yes.
that front and center would be amazing. So thinking about organizational environments, you're the chief learning officer, you've been revolutionary in what you've been able to build in environments. And so would love to hear, what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced as an executive catalyst in these environments?
I think one of the things are we have these ideas for great programs, right? We did our research. We figured out what the gap is. We found the business case for the gap. We found a program to fill the gap. Everything's on board, right? We got funding. We're doing everything we need to do. Okay, we're going to do it at, Tuesday at 3:00. Not realizing that most people can't get out Tuesday at 3:00. Or for whatever reason, a large chunk of people are not in, or there's a major conference, everyone's going to be away because we're crossing sectors and industries. So sometimes the logistics
Mm,
really can make an incredible program fall flat because if no one's there for it, right? It's as if it didn't happen. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, wearing my adult educator hat. Too often I see people develop programs and they're like, great, we've got this program. We're going to do a workshop. We're going to, it's going to be experiential. And, I said, that's great. And what about the other learners? How are they going to take in and process that information? Not everyone learns by listening. Some people want to read it on their own. Some people need to get their hands dirty and actually work with the material in order for them to be able to learn it. Now, I'm not saying this one's a kinesthetic learner and this one's an auditory learner. We know that's been debunked. That's not true. But as adults, we don't all take in and process information the same way. But yet, for some reason, everyone's insisting on delivering content in the same way.
mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I encourage people to do, if you want to teach something, if you want to share knowledge about an idea, you need to have it delivered in different ways. One, you will catch people with these different schedules, different time zones that we have now. You will able to collect all of that and really make sure that you're reaching all of these people. And two,
Mm-hmm.
you want to deliver it in different formats. Sure, you want the workshop, but you also want something that's more passive. You want to allow people to read it. You want, maybe somebody wants a podcast. Maybe somebody needs it more gamified, right? Some sort of e-learning course where it's gamified. So there's different ways to deliver content, and we need to be able to deliver the content via different mediums across time zones. And that, I think, is still a work in progress.
I love the tactical nature of the challenges you're helping us bring forward, because it can be easy for catalysts to kind of sit at an ethereal place. So talk to me about how you've overcome, like, what are the things that we know about logistics? And I'll translate your language a little bit into like what we talk about as communicating, right?
Yeah.
You're like very like, how do I communicate to folks who take in information in a variety of ways?
Yeah.
So grant us your wisdom and learning, right?
So whenever we work on a program, I curate options so that people can take it in different ways. Yes, we'll have a keynote, or we'll have a workshop, we'll have a speaker, absolutely. But I will also direct them to articles on the topics,
Mm.
podcasts on the topics, LinkedIn learning courses on the topics. I've developed several LinkedIn learning courses on the topics that I hear people wanting the most, such as how to coach your team to learn, stretch, and grow, and how to become an inspiring mentor, and how to engage your high achievers. So those are things that people have been asking about. So I was able to use another platform to create those courses so that people can learn them on their own. And I think that has really helped between articles and podcasts and webinars and LinkedIn learning courses and bringing someone in. I think it offers more opportunities. It's significantly more cost effective, and we're able to reach people across time zones and days.
I love the thinking on how you've achieved it, and then also the measures of success that you were looking for in what you put in place. So thank you for that last comment.
I also think, I mean, this is a personal reflection on building on yours, Ruth, but I'd love your thoughts about it, because one of the things that as I've mentored people or coached people or whatever, is the logistics can be so like the biggest determinants, not just of success, but of timing. And creating change can take such a long time that I've encouraged people to like lay out for the other stakeholders, like, if you're going to get on the executives' calendars, it's going to take you 6 months. You're not going to be able to get on the calendar of all 10 leaders at the same time. Just wondering if you have any like advice around how Catalyst can navigate the challenges of logistics and bring people along.
So first, my question is, why do you need to get on all 10 calendars? Right. I think you need to question that original assumption. What is it you need from them? That you need to have meetings, right? Mark Cuban doesn't have meetings, he does emails, right? So why do you need to have meetings with everyone? What is it that you need from them? Is there another way to communicate? Do you need their buy-in, or is it just an FYI? If it's an FYI, don't waste their time. Just send them an email or a text message, right? And there are other ways that you can communicate. Now, remember, if you're solving a problem for them, you want to be the aspirin, not the vitamin. You want to solve a problem for them, and then you'll see that they make time for you. If you're doing extra, here's a little more glitter. Here's a new bell. Here's a new whistle. Sorry, I've got 55 crises I'm trying to solve right now. Your bells will have to wait.
It's really good feedback from the system, right? Like if you're having trouble getting X resource or time with people, you're not probably hitting the pain point well enough.
100%. 100%.
So we normally ask for like wisdom for Catalyst executives and generally leave it pretty broad, but given your expertise around mentorship, I think it would be super interesting for you to maybe give guidance to both the Catalyst leaders who might be the mentors, but also the Catalyst mentees. And I'll just say one of the challenges that we know is that there's not a lot of catalysts that like rise up to the top echelons of large organizations, which there's a little bit of like a scarcity potentially for catalyst mentors. And I guess there's an assumption in there that as catalysts, we need catalyst mentors. So would love your thoughts around the intersection of mentorship and catalysts.
So I would argue that you don't. You certainly need one or two. Right. So I am in favor, and all the research shows that you should have a team of mentors. But if everyone is going to be a catalyst like you are going to be in an echo chamber, and you're not going to hear anything new. And sometimes the solutions to problems we're having come from something that's completely different. So the checklist that you see in operating rooms, right? So the problem they were having was medical errors, which was saved by a checklist. That idea for a checklist came from what pilots use from the aviation industry, which is why you want people who are different than you. You need, not just want, you need that diversity of thought. And that happens from people who are senior to you, at your level, and junior to you. So don't just be stuck with you need somebody who's more senior to you. That's passé now.
And advice to Catalyst executives who might be mentoring people?
So I think, first of all, do not create them as a mini version of you. That is my first piece of advice. I see that happening so often. I would really start the question with what's keeping you up at night. Because what's keeping you up at night says you have a challenge. And if you don't have a challenge, you need to have a challenge. And that challenge could be from a stretch assignment, a new opportunity, whatever it is, but something to get them to really start to stretch, because we're like rubber bands. Once we start to stretch, we no longer go to our original form. So as mentors, you always want to stretch your mentees. Now, you don't want to go too far because they'll snap, but you don't want to do too little because then they're not challenged. So finding that right medium. Also, recommend other people who should be on their mentoring team.
Nice.
So again, people who are like you, people who are different than you. Then you want to ask them, what do you want to do, right? And now in the future, and let's figure out what skills you need for that. And let's figure out what skills you don't yet have for that. And again, how are we filling that gap? So it all comes back to filling that gap.
Love it. Super tangible. Thank you.
All about the actionable tips.
Totally. As we wrap up the section around wisdom, you clearly, like, your whole life has been around taking the road that wasn't easy, if that was the path that was of interest to you. So I'm curious, from your own experience, kind of what are the hardest lessons you've learned when that's your natural way of being? Like, where have you hit the potholes in the roads less traveled or never traveled?
A lot of potholes, a lot of barriers, a lot of craters, a lot of people who will stand in your way because it threatens their position.
Yes.
I was not prepared for that at all. I'm still not. It's still very hurtful when it happens. But notice that there's some people who think that a light on you detracts from the light on them. I've interviewed many astronauts who have promised me that there's enough light for all of us to shine. So that's, I think, a major issue. I think another major issue is nobody really knows how to evaluate you. The standards that are for other people don't apply to you. So when you need to go up for a promotion, and very often for a job that doesn't even exist,
Yeah.
right? You need to start creating your own jobs. It becomes very challenging, right? You are always the square peg in the round hole, always,
Yeah.
always the unicorn.
That's Shannon's favorite descriptor for Catalyst. You couldn't, I mean, you could potentially know that, but okay. You hit on something that, like, it really, like, hits me in my solar plexus, this idea of people kind of standing in the way that are threatened by what you're doing. And you're like, do skipping down the road less path, excited
Yeah.
for this end thing. This overlaps something we see a lot in our research, I believe, is gaslighting that people can experience in the organization, because often we're not paying attention to folks
Yeah.
like that because we're so excited about what we saw at the end of the road. And so I wonder what kind of wisdom you've gained, and how do we recognize, like, uh-oh, this is
Yeah.
someone who doesn't want the light taken off of them and put on me. And then what do you do once you recognize it?
So a few things. One of the things that I have learned is on the bottom, people compete, and at the top, they collaborate.
Mm.
And those who truly want to move forward will collaborate. Truly. Look at any athletes who work together, right? Look at any NBA team. It's not going to work unless they all shine. You can't have one shine and four not. You can't have four shining and one not. All five need to shine. They need to work in unison. So I think that's one of the things. Another thing to notice is if somebody's complaining about something about everyone else, it's just a matter of time before they complain about you.
So you're scanning the environment well ahead. You're
You have
seeing the
to.
signs at
Look for
this
clues.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
long before you've kind of been like, oh, look, this person who seems like they've been supporting me is actually not.
Nope.
You are seeing it early.
Yeah. And when they start taking credit for your work, that's the time to really reevaluate things, because it's only going to get worse from there.
I
So
wonder if I wonder if there's a direct correlation with how shiny and unicorny they describe you at the beginning versus how it ends.
Oh, I don't know, but if I had to think about these other unicorns who I know, at the beginning, they're the best thing since sliced bread.
Right.
And afterwards, they're barely mentioned, even though the ideas were theirs. The implementation was theirs.
And there's a question about how they're left standing. They're like squashed on the road in the in the journey.
Yeah. Well,
Fascinating.
that's why I created that LinkedIn Learning course of engaging your high performers, because they were not engaged and then you lose them. And what
Yes.
we know is that they are at minimum 400% more productive than average employees. And in some of the
Amazing.
technical fields like software development, they are 800% more productive. So if we're squashing those people, we're going to be left with the average employees.
What kind of overlap do you think there might be between the high performer audience that you've identified and what we talk about with Catalyst? I'm so curious.
Well, I haven't studied that, but I would guess that
No,
there's
I know.
definitely an overlap. People who think differently, who are curious about something and then go after it. Look, a lot of
Yeah.
us have ideas and are curious and are Googling and going down rabbit holes. But there's a difference between passively going down a rabbit hole on your phone versus coming up with a plan and going for it.
Totally. Yeah, and that's a telltale for us as Catalysts. It's the, they take in information, they create the visions, and then they're tripping over themselves into action.
Exactly. Can't do it fast enough.
Yeah, so I feel like we probably have a fair amount of overlap. And so the researcher
Yes.
in me is like, how much of her research can I begin to integrate? Like that's good stuff, being able to talk about a 400% productivity gain. I like that.
It's all in the book, The Success Factor. It's all in there.
Amazing. All right. As we wrap up our time together, we have that fun question. Who's your favorite inspirational catalyst and why? It sounds like you have like an insane network too. So I'm super curious who you pick.
Yes, the network is, my contact list is fun. But I'll tell you the type of person first. It is the person who is the square peg in the round hole, who was the first to do things, because I learn a lot from their journeys of how to deal with things, of how to do things. And there are a lot of people who have done incredible things. And if I were to start with some of the women, because those are the ones that come to mind. I first read the book A Higher Standard by General Anne Dunwoody. She was the first female 4-star general, and I was blown away. Blown away. She's definitely on my list of people I want to interview. She was great. Eileen Collins, the first female commander of a space shuttle. I mean, she had to also take the shuttle after the Columbia disaster. All eyes were on her. And she had to do a maneuver where she had to turn the shuttle upside down so that the space station could take a picture of tiles that fell off. I mean, unbelievable that she got her crew home safely. Incredible. So people like that, to me, are amazing because they've done incredible things and are humble. So I know Eileen Collins, and she's super humble. So it's not just achieving the greatness, it's also being humble about it. Steve Kerr, he's the coach of the Golden State Warriors. He coached Team USA basketball, men's basketball, to the gold medal. He wrote the foreword to my book, Financial Times Guide to Mentoring. 9 NBA championships, and the most humble person I have ever met. The foreword he wrote, I didn't have to change one word. It is all him. It comes from the heart. He is values-based, and it comes through with everything that he does. So those kind of people who are willing to do things that other people didn't do, really, that's what I get super excited about.
Amazing. An amazing call to action for our listeners, like leaning in that way.
Yes.
This was tremendous, super fantastic conversation, Ruth. Thank you so much for spending your time with us.
My pleasure.
And as we wrap up today for our listeners, thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to create bold, powerful change in the world, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, or go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And if you enjoyed this episode, and we know you did, because, oh my gosh, this was insane, take a few seconds, rate it on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And for all those other catalysts in your life, or high potential achievers, because we're seeing some overlap, hit the share button and send a link their way. Thank you again. Thank you so much, Ruth.